Hello everyone and welcome back to the Mosaic Travel Design channel and welcome back to another episode of Now Boarding where we discuss the latest travel news and industry updates. My name is Laura and on last episode we talked about two new nonstop flights, one leaving Southern California to Honolulu and one going from New York to Croatia, and we also touched on some updates regarding Alaska cruises and traveling this summer to Alaska. So this episode, we have a lot to discuss regarding cruises and Alaska, as well as travel to Europe and which countries are open to American tourists and what is needed to travel there. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with Europe and talk about their travel restrictions for Americans. A lot of people are looking to have their summer vacation in Europe since it is trying to reopen. Officially, there isn't an actual date for the EU to open. The group of countries in the European Union has not announced a specific set date that will allow vaccinated Americans over into Europe. However, there are some countries that are opening independently of what the EU is doing. The European Union representatives have agreed to ease travel restrictions for vaccinated visitors. However, there isn't that set date yet. But we do have some countries that are opening independently of the EU, like I mentioned, that will allow vaccinated Americans to visit sooner. So some of those countries, like we talked about Greece in a previous episode, we've mentioned Croatia, Iceland, Italy, France, and Germany are also planning to reopen soon to vaccinated visitors or those with negative COVID tests. The rules vary by the country that you're going. You're definitely going to want to make sure to check with your travel agent for the latest rules when you are planning to travel. Italy is relaxing their restrictions. We've already started to see some flights that are quarantine-free flights that are taking off from the East Coast to Italy. All the passengers on those flights have tested negative for COVID before and after the flight. So those are called the quarantine-free flights. When you land in Italy, you have already had your negative COVID test, so you do not have to quarantine. It's also important to note that if you are planning on traveling internationally to Europe for a summer vacation, you still do need to take your COVID test upon returning to the United States. This test needs to be taken within 3 days of your departure flight from Europe or internationally back into the United States, regardless of your vaccination status. As of right now, the United Kingdom, it left the European Union in early 2020, as we know, so there are still talks about easing travel restrictions there, and as of right now, Americans must quarantine for 10 days if you are traveling to the UK. We will hopefully see some updates on that and some more restrictions easing to the UK, but that is the update as of now. It was also just announced that Ireland will be reopening to American citizens on July 19th. They have a European Union COVID-19 certificate in place that will help if you have the proof of vaccination or proof of a negative COVID test. It will help you travel freely around the country. If you are unvaccinated and you are outside the EU, you must arrive with a negative COVID test and plan to self-quarantine until you can take a second post-arrival test. Again, that is for unvaccinated travelers. So exciting that we are seeing so much of the European Union reopening. They're trying to reopen in time for summer vacations. We'll see if that kind of happens, but definitely by fall, I think a lot of these kinks will be ironed out with travel restrictions, any kind of COVID certificates or vaccine passports. We'll get some more information as the days go on, and we'll be sure to keep you updated with new information. Okay, so let's go ahead and switch gears into cruising. In the last episode, we talked about the latest updates with the Alaska summer cruise season, and today we're going to go ahead and update that information because the legislation that we talked about in the last episode has been passed on to the Senate, and it's on its way to President Biden to sign it into law. This is the Alaska Tourism Recovery Act. And this would allow foreign flag ships to transport passengers between Washington State and Alaska. As we talked about in the last episode, foreign flag ships must make a stop in a foreign land, being Canada in this case, because we're talking about Alaska itineraries, and Canada's cruise ban is currently in place until February of 2022. So this bill would allow an exemption until February of 2022 so that the Alaska cruise itineraries can travel from Washington State to Alaska. Of course, these cruise lines are still working through a lot of information from the CDC and trying to figure out a safe way for them to restart. And it does take between 60 and 90 days for them to start up a ship and go through a lot of testing simulations, quarantine the crew, and get everything ready for actual passengers to be on board. But that is a great sign for Alaska. I know they're so excited about it, and it's so exciting to see that they may be able to reopen for at least just a little bit of the cruise season, just at the end there. So with the announcement of the Alaska Tourism Restoration Act and all the work the cruise line industry has put in with the CDC, Princess Cruises announced that they are back in Alaska sailing on the Majestic Princess for 7-day cruises round trip from Seattle, beginning on July 25th through September 26th. This summer, so that's so exciting. Plus, we have a lot of other cruise lines that are coming into Alaska as well, specifically Royal Caribbean and Celebrity. They are set to sail in July with a COVID vaccine requirement. They are sailing from Seattle to Alaska on round-trip itineraries. We've also got Carnival and Holland America looking to resume requiring COVID vaccines on their initial sailings. We have Holland America on a Alaska 7-day sailing on their new Amsterdam ship, and we also have Carnival Cruise Line sailing their Carnival Miracle from Seattle, so again 7 days, starting on July 27th, running through September 14th. So lots of cruise lines getting in their cruises in the last little bit of the Alaska summer cruise season. We also have Norwegian in there, hoping to resume. Again, the COVID vaccine is a requirement for all passengers and crew. They are hoping to start their Alaska itineraries on the Norwegian Bliss starting on August 7th through the end of the season, sailing from Seattle again. So lots of new itineraries coming out for those cruise lines because they are not stopping in Canada now. They are going straight from Seattle to Alaska. And so lots of opportunities to get to Alaska and cruise this season, which is so exciting. We also have Norwegian Cruise Line announce their plans to restart cruising to Hawaii in November. They are starting sailing their Honolulu-based Pride of America cruise ship on November 6th. The voyage is still contingent on a sailing certificate from the CDC, but they are looking forward to that. So speaking of the CDC, they just announced that they are easing some testing results for fully vaccinated cruise passengers. So if you are looking to cruise this summer or into the fall and you are vaccinated, this is going to make things a little bit easier for you. So if you are asymptomatic and you are fully vaccinated, you do not have to be tested for COVID-19 upon embarkation of your cruise ship. Now, if you are unvaccinated, you are still allowed to cruise, but it's a little more difficult. You have to have your negative COVID-19 test results on embarkation and debarkation. Another note about masks. The rules are a little different. If you're vaccinated, you are allowed to take your mask off in outdoor settings on cruise ships and enjoy meals and a few drinks. However, if you are unvaccinated, you do still have to mask up when you're in a lounge chair sunbathing and stay 6 feet apart from other passengers. The other update is that vaccinated passengers will be able to go onshore alone and participate in group tours, and they'll be able to actually leave the ship when they're in their ports. So if you are looking to cruise, definitely make sure that you talk to your travel agent and you research what is needed based on if you're vaccinated, you're unvaccinated, what is needed for that cruise line, and what the rules are when you're on board so that you are aware. Okay, last but not least, we want to talk about river cruising in Europe, which is coming back, which is so exciting. So Viking, one of our favorite cruise lines in Europe, announced their July return for European cruises. They are offering an 8-day cruise from Amsterdam to Basel, a 10-day voyage from Lisbon to Porto, and a lot of journeys in France as well. So they are coming back This was announced after the European Union announced that the borders would reopen to vaccinated travelers. So Viking was allowed to open up for their cruises this summer. Additionally, Amawaterways will be resuming river cruises starting on July 3rd. That was just announced, with 7 of their ships restarting cruising. They have a lot of cruises in Portugal, the Danube River, France, and several different locations in France. So that is so exciting as well. So we've seen a lot of cruising open up, both here in Hawaii, Alaska, in the US, and in Europe. Now the river cruises are really starting to open up as well as what we talked about previously, with a lot of European countries open up. So that is all the information I have for you today. Obviously, definitely stay tuned, because information is changing all the time, and we're going to do our best to keep you updated. Be sure to leave me a comment down below if you are interested in traveling on a cruise or to Europe this summer or into this fall. I'm curious to know who is looking to travel. And with all that said, that is what I have for you today. So be sure to stay tuned for next week's episode. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to you later. Bye!